Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Class Companion in the APUSH Classroom. My name is Peter Paccone, and I'm a recently retired high school social studies teacher. I'm also a consultant for, or to, never quite sure which one, Class Companion. Today, we're going to be hearing from APUSH and dual enrollment teacher, Jeff Swisher. Jeff's a good friend of mine, and he's here today to not only tell us and describe for us how he is using Class Companion in his APUSH and dual enrollment classrooms, but he's also here to answer a bunch of questions related to that use. Now, predictably and generally, normally I'd bring Jeff in here right now, but if you don't mind, I'd like to take just a couple of minutes to do two things first. Number one, I want to describe for the benefit of those who are new to Class Companion, what Class Companion is in a nutshell. And the way I typically like to explain it, again, in a nutshell, it is a platform where a teacher either uploads an assignment, SAQ, LEQ, DBQ, also multiple choice questions. A teacher either uploads an assignment, finds one of those assignments in the Class Companion content library, or creates one of those assignments with the help of Class Companion's AI. So they bring those assignments to their students who then respond, and when they submit their response, they get instant feedback. And the teacher also gets instant feedback, AKA insights. That's the platform in a nutshell. Now, on top of that, there are 20 fabulous features. And my guess is we're going to be talking about at least a couple of them. And just in case we don't, we're talking about something called Ditto, a tutoring feature built into Class Companion. Teacher controls the extent to which they want that tutor to help the student. And then also the very magical dispute feature, a feature that allows students, if they question the AI response, to challenge. And I can tell you from experience, when that happens, that's as good as it gets, because at that moment, you know, real deep learning is about to take place. So I said there were two things. First and foremost, I want to describe Class Companion in a nutshell. I feel like I've done that now. And then the other thing that I want to do, and this is for the benefit of those who are new to the platform, as well as those who are very familiar with the platform, I want to encourage all to check out the Class Companion homepage. There is fabulous, fabulous stuff up there. First and foremost, slideshows and short videos that will walk you through step by step what you need to know in order to have this platform prove of benefit to you and to your students. There's also the link to the Help Center up there. Any question? Let's access that link. I think you will find, and I take great pride in saying this, the Class Companion does a magnificent job and is really dedicated to getting back to teachers who request help through the Help Center. Thirdly, on that website, there is the link to the Class Companion Facebook group. I believe there are now 3 or 4 of us who are administering that page. And I understand, maybe there are some of you, I know many, who don't want to do Facebook. But if you're going to do Facebook for just one thing, go and ask for permission to be able to join that private Facebook group. You'll find tons of other teachers up there, 1,500 or so. And if you put your stuff up there, one, you're going to provide them with good information. They're going to help you to better understand the platform. And if you ever have a question, just pop it up there. And you can Help Center, between that Help Center and the Facebook group teachers there, you're sure to get an answer. And then last but not least, what's up there is what is called the data privacy packet, the data privacy packet. So the reality is that there are some schools, some administrators, some district officials who, for whatever reason, are reluctant to place AI-driven platforms into the hands of their students. If you have one of those administrators, if that's what's happening at your school, just go to the homepage, Class Companion homepage, the website, and access all of what I just described is located in the resource tab. Access the the data privacy packet and hand that to your admins. Time after time after time, I've seen it. I've experienced it. I've heard teachers report back, oh my gosh, it was like magic. It is high quality. Class Companion gets a lot of praise for having done their homework and making sure that kids and kid information is protected. So those are the two things that I want to do. And now, with all of that aside, let's bring Jeff Swisher in here. Hey, Jeff. Nice
Hello.
to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Well, yeah. So, first question, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us a little bit about your class, your school.
Okay, so just a quick background. I've been a teacher for 10 years. Prior to that, I spent 20 years in the computer industry. Data warehousing and artificial intelligence was where I spent a lot of my effort, which has changed a ton just in the 10 years I've been out of it. I went back to school to become a teacher. So I got my my bachelor's in social studies education, and then I decided I wasn't done with school, so I went and got my master's in American history. So I've been teaching at an inner city school outside of Chicago, Griffith, Indiana. And so I have a big mix of different students, some that are, really excited about learning history and some that aren't so excited about it. So I teach a mix of dual credit, AP U.S. history, and world history classes today. And I use Classroom Companion in all of them.
When did you first learn about Class Companion? And then feel free to segue that into how you are actually using it in your APUSH and dual enrollment classes.
Okay, I found out about Class Companion about 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago.
Shortly after
right
launch.
before we went on the summer break. And I ended up playing with it. And then I decided that I thought this would be good to use in my classroom because I found that I couldn't get my students to write enough. And it was a combination of, I felt a duty as a teacher that if I gave them a writing assignment, I had to read it, I had to give them feedback, and I had to grade it. Or else, why am I giving them that writing assignment to do? And so as a result, I was probably spending way too much time reading and giving feedback to students that most of them didn't read anyways. And so I saw the tool and I started playing with it over the summer, and I quickly started using it in my classroom. And I found that that sort of idea of giving students a writing prompt and giving them feedback for it was round tripping a whole lot faster with Class Companion than I could do it manually. That's not to say I did it all that way when I started, but I did it enough to where I started to feel comfortable that I felt like Class Companion was giving them good feedback, and I could see progress in their writing that they were doing, which was the most important part for me. So and I've been using it off and on in all of those classes ever since.
Equal amounts of SAQs, LAQs, DBQs, or are you favoring one over the other?
When I started, I did mostly DBQs and LAQs. That was most of the ones that I focused on. And so because that was most of where I thought my students had the biggest challenge. So as I started assigning those, we probably did them every other week. Every third week, I would give a Class Companion assignment, and then they would do a paper one or a handwritten one the other weeks. But I found myself moving more and more to Class Companion for a couple reasons. My students started telling me that they wanted to do Class Companion instead of writing it by hand. Specifically, one of the things that they liked the best was the feature that I could set the number of times they could submit it, because I had those students that would submit it and they go, that's good enough. But then I had those students that would go, I got a 5 out of 8. I'm going to make it an 8 out of 8. If I gave them 99 times to try just for that 1 point, they would. But I found that they were getting better each time they did it. And I wasn't accomplishing those same things when I was doing it manually.
I want to make sure I understood that right. You're assigning Class Companion work. Are you creating your own, uploading? Are you drawing from the content library?
A mix? Yes, a mix. So
yeah.
I started out by doing my own. because I kind of viewed, hey, it's going to fit within the context of my class. It's going to fit what I wanted to focus on. I didn't use the AI generated one as much because I was pretty good with ChatGPT, getting it to generate what I wanted to do. So I did a lot of generating in ChatGPT, and then either generating the prompt, because you can tell in ChatGPT, generate a prompt that just put this all together for me, and pasting those into Class Companion, or just doing it manually and moving them from ChatGPT into Class Companion. Then I found that some of the questions in the library were useful to me, and I started then using, I would quickly do a view there to see what was available in the public library, and then start using some of those. So it was sort of a ebb and flow through time as I not became more comfortable. That's not the right word, but found that there were other uses that I could pull some of those things in rather than doing everything myself.
And again, this was catching me by surprise. I didn't realize you were using it that often. You're talking what'd you say, every few days, at least once a week, you're giving them a class
And now
companion?
I use it at least once a week.
Interesting. And formative or summative? Are we putting it into the grade book, or is it just for practice? Or again, both? Yeah.
Yeah, it's both. So even if it's for practice, I put it in the grade book. But I don't put in, if it's practice, I look at the grade they got, and I then quickly look at what the grade they got was the last time, and I adjust the grade based upon the progress that I'm seeing, because I'm more concerned about progress than perfection. And if they keep getting the same score, that means that they're not focusing on the right things, or they're happy with a C and they could be writing at an A level. And so that's why I do it that way. Summative, I still use it for that also, but I will tell you, especially when I first started doing it, I really looked over the grades that they were given. I look over it less now than I used to, because rarely did I ever find something that I felt was egregious between the differences between the two. Second, I really wanted the kids to use the dispute function, that if they felt that there was a grade they didn't earn, that wasn't the level that they should have, I encourage them to dispute it, and not just, it needs to be a higher score. I tell them that will not get them anything. Why is that grade wrong is what I'm more interested in, and give me evidence that supports why that grade is wrong. And I found I've learned things from what kids put in their disputes, of how they look at things differently sometimes than I would have.
So again, just to make sure I heard everything right here. So your 2 years of experience plus, you're telling me that it's generally very accurate in terms of scores, SAQ, LEQ, and DBQ. That was the point there, right? Number one?
Correct. The only time I have ever had an accuracy that I felt wasn't exactly right is I have two ESL students. One's a foreign exchange student, and her English structure, I think, confused sometimes the AI. Sometimes it confused me, to be honest. And so those two initially, probably a year ago, and 6 months ago, I noticed I had to look at those a little harder. Especially the feedback I felt sometimes was not really clear to them. Now it's not an issue anymore. Both, they've gotten better at writing, and I think the tool has gotten better at giving them feedback.
Let's talk about that dispute feature for a second. So I've had some experience with it. I sit in the classroom, I see what happens. In your classroom, when the student hits that dispute feature, what do you have? 25, 35 kids in that inner city school that you were describing? How many students do you have?
Yeah, I have 28 in each class.
So, okay. So I'm picturing it. When a student hits the dispute feature, it comes automatically to you at your desk, right?
Correct.
And do you, so there are a number of different ways that teachers are responding to this. Do you insist that the student actually then explain in writing, and then you make the decision at your desk whether or not to override? Or do you also allow them, say, for example, the option of, rather than hitting the dispute feature, either coming up to you and having the conversation with you, or turning to their peers and having the conversation? Do you limit it at all, or do you welcome all three very dispute formats?
Well, yes, I started out with, I let them dispute and I wanted them to explain it all, but you have those students that, have a 98 and those 2 points are screaming at them and they want to argue about 1 point. So what I did is I came up with like a structure I use. So first, they have to do all their disputes in writing, but I will only talk to them physically about disputes if it is a higher point total than 10 points. So I don't want to sit and argue about whether they should have got 1 point, 9 points, or 10 points if it's only worth 10 points, because it's not going to affect their grade in any major way. Larger ones, I will do it. Larger ones, I will always sit down with them and discuss their dispute verbally with them. So by doing this, I've automatically limited that. The other thing I have played with, and I did in one class, is if you already have an A, I will just look at your verbal dispute and make a decision from there, and I'm not going to let you sit there and argue it with me. Though I have found sometimes a student has learned something by having a discussion about their dispute, which is a good good thing also. I have not had the kids dispute it amongst each other yet, and kind of do that, but that's something that I've thought about. I just have not done.
Yeah. I've found, Jeff, to just interject for a second, I allow all three, and it's amazing what kids choose. Sometimes they turn to ask their friends, and you can see it from the front of the room, and you just know those wheels are spinning. There's something about that. Also, I invite them to come up and hash it out with me, and usually they'll bring a friend or two, But one way or the other, I get the sense that that's when they're really, really into the learning. And so I want to move just beyond the dispute a little bit, and I want to ask you about the ditto feature. But before I do that, and the ditto feature is new, so if you haven't yet really kind of gotten into it, I would understand. Again, I didn't ask you this in advance, but if I forget about the ditto, remind me. But first, what I want to do is I want to bring you into that big picture question. Like, and I see it. I'm on the internet. I'm on social media. I belong to a number of APUSH Facebook groups. I'm sure you do as well. Especially, by the way, did you tell us about your role at the state level, real quick? Did I miss that? Did you tell us about?
No, I didn't bring it up. So I'm part of a group called Teach Plus also, and I help advocate for laws that are getting passed in Indiana to make sure that teacher voice is heard.
Nice. The reason
my
I'm
big
asking
thing
is
Indiana's redesigning their diploma. So that's my big thing that I'm dealing with.
Is because I wanted to set this up. You too, as I do, you hear from a lot of teachers. And what I'm hearing right now is this just tremendous national debate going on about whether, I just have to phrase this bluntly because that's how it was put forward, that it is a dereliction of a teacher's duty to have AI assess. I mean, I can guess how you respond to that, but I'd like to have you just, how do you respond when people say that? Other teachers.
Well, part of what I do is I try and tell other teachers, well, first, I don't say it's grading it. I try and pull away from that word. I said, what I'm doing is I'm giving the kids a place to practice with giving them feedback. Some of it may be a grade, some of it may not be. But I found that if I kind of couch it in more sports terms, that, like batting practice, you're not going to give a kid feedback every single time he comes up at batting practice, but you're going to give him targeted feedback at specific times that focus on the areas of weakness that he has. And the only way you're going to find areas of weakness that he has is by repetition. And so the same thing I say in writing, and analysis and evaluation and breaking down and understanding the scope, are all things that have to produce muscle memory that you can go through and you can quickly go and evaluate a source and go, these are the important things. And these are the things a question is asking. And these are the ways I need to formulate an answer. And that needs to come faster and faster. And the way to do that is by having more practice. And the second piece of it is feedback. I found that when I was grading and giving feedback, and I was no different when I was in school, the teacher would write all these notes all over my paper. And if the grade I thought was okay, I never even probably read them. So I found that I was giving the students a lot of feedback and they weren't even applying it to the next assignment they worked on because there's such a huge gap between it. So by me being able to give them feedback or provide them feedback within seconds of them writing it, they are more likely, more willing, and the evidence shows that they are going to make corrections to what they just worked on.
Let's now go back to Ditto, and I don't mean to put you on the spot here.
Yep.
It hasn't been that long since it launched. Have you explored it at all? Have you had your students use it? Are you at all familiar with it?
Yes. So it kind of popped in one day, and I'm one of those people that when Avery sends out a list that says these are the new features that are coming out, I'll go and I'll dig and I'll take a look at them. And when Ditto came out, I first was like, I wonder how this is going to work. And I started playing with it as a student, and I found it really good as an additional learning tool on top of the essay. Let me give you an example. I might use a word, or there might be a word that they don't remember what it means, and they can ask Ditto what it means. And what I quickly understood is not only did Ditto give them a definition of it, but it gave them definition of it within context of the question. So it knew that I was actually playing with a physics essay because one of our physics teachers wanted to use it for essays. And I asked a question, and I don't even remember what it was, but it was something that has a different meaning in physics than it does in chemistry, than it does in biology. And it knew because the question was in the scope of this physics item that it answered the question within physics coming back. And so my students, I love looking because I can see each student and their Ditto questions they ask, and I can see the response Ditto gives. It's really intriguing to me because sometimes I'll look at it and go, what questions are kids asking Ditto? And maybe I might not have explained that well, or maybe I didn't give them good enough direction, or maybe I just plain chose words that they're not going to understand within the question. And so not only I think Ditto is a benefit to the students to help them with the question, it helps teach them. And then it gave me some feedback to see what was going on when I was looking at kids using Ditto. I do not turn it off. I leave it on for students to use.
You don't turn it off ever. Cool.
No, I have not turned it off yet.
Hey, Jeff, you mentioned that your kids really like Class Companion, that they prefer to use it over writing. And talk to us a little bit about, first of all, your department, how many teachers there are, what their reaction has been to Class Companion, and then also how about the ELA, if you know your ELA departments and maybe your environmental science course. Look at these courses where you would think a program like Class Companion, foreign language as well, would have a real inroad because of maybe less so in chemistry. Maybe we're beginning to think that there's real value in chemistry, but maybe, and certainly not in math. I mean, an LLM isn't real big on math, but in these other courses, first of all, social studies, and then what you know about the others to make that question shorter.
Okay, so it's probably best to tell you a story that kind of goes into it because I think it'll explain what happened at my school. So I had been using Class Companion, but for lack of a better term, on the down low, I didn't want to make a big deal about it. I didn't want to rock the boat. I didn't want to. I already rocked the boat too many other times, and I felt this was an area that I wanted to play with in my class a little bit and get a footprint and get a better understanding of it before I kind of pushed it really hard. So at the beginning of this school year, I got asked by our instructional coach to actually present Class Companion to every single teacher in our school, from all the middle school teachers and all the high school teachers. So I presented it and walked through it, and they had a lot of the same questions you were asking. And I went through, this is how I use it. And I brought 2 students in to tell them, this is how they felt when they first used it, and this is how they felt now. And many of our teachers were incredibly excited. Some, like the math teachers, were disappointed that it didn't work for them. But we did, then I broke up into groups and I did things with the physics class. And we actually put in physics problems in it. We did some math word problems that it actually did a really nice job on. We did ELA, we did social studies, we did some of our reading classes for reading comprehension. What was nice is we sucked in the chapters of the book and then asked class companion to write reading comprehension questions that went with that book. And so being able to pull all those in with all the different topics with the same tool was really useful. And then plus, once a student learns it in one class, they're used to moving around it and using Ditto and all those other things after that. And they really got used to it. So that's at least the process, at least my group, my social studies group. I have some old school ones that if we still had a transparencies, they would probably still use those. Then I have, a few that have tried it and they like it, but they're just not consistently using it. Because they have everything that they have written for 5 years for now. The last 10 years they've used this material, and they don't want to change it too much. So I showed them how to import questions that they already wrote and some of those other things to bring them in. It's just they're not consistent with it. But I and the teacher next to me are probably the most consistent ones that use it.
Jeff, what do you think the learning curve is for? I mean, again, when it first came out, and you were supporting it before I did, I think. But obviously, then there was a bigger learning curve as we were all learning about AI. But now that we've all got some familiarity with it, what's the learning curve for new teachers? Do you think how challenging?
The number one question I get asked from teachers that are first using it is, what should they put in the prompt that gets the question that they want? If that makes sense. It's more of, how do I generate a good prompt that's going to produce a good question? And that is by far the most frequent things that I get. I have not gotten any teacher that has gotten lost in the tool, that can't figure their way around in the tool. The interface is fairly simple, so it's not overly complex from that perspective. And it does what it does, and it does what it does well. It doesn't try and do every imaginable kind of thing, which then makes it a little easier to be able to teach and be able to do. Rubrics are probably the second question I get.
Yeah, let's
and
go
9
there.
times out of 10, I just suck in a rubric. However, I have been playing a lot now with rubrics. I do what the NFL does, where they focus on a specific rule in a specific season. I change my rubric periodically to focus and expand more details on one specific item, if that makes sense. So I might want to really focus, this time they write their essay on high quality evidence and how well do they explain that evidence. I'm going to give more points, and I'm going to break out my rubric into more details associated with that I may not normally, or maybe more detailed than the AP rubric, as an example.
So let's just, for the benefit of those who are new, it's not just about uploading an assignment or using an assignment in the content library or creating an assignment with Class Companion's AI. It's also about uploading your own rubric, creating a rubric with the AI, or using a rubric that's in the content library. That's, I think, the point here. And you're telling me that more often than not, you use your own rubric. Is that what you were saying?
It depends on what I'm doing. So
Okay.
For practice, I'll kind of go, okay, they were really struggling with contextualization. And so I will do some Class Companion assignments, and I will expand the details that I want in the rubric for contextualization on more things that I wanted to look for, and call it out more and make it worth more points so the student will focus on it. And then the next time I might use the straight AP one. But I changed the rubric a bit. And I really like that when it grades it, it highlights in the text what goes with and what the rationale they gave them that grade. So the kid doesn't have to hunt and peck for it. And so by concentrating on specific things, I can focus my students on one thing at a time that I want them to get better, rather than the whole thing, if that makes sense.
It does. Jeff, I gave a presentation this weekend at a conference, a teacher conference, on AI and how it can be used to enhance history education. And in that presentation, I featured Class Companion and a couple other tools as well, not FRQ instant feedback tools, but tools that like Snorkel and Napkin. I don't know if you've heard of either of those, but very interesting happened. Someone made clear to me going in, teacher made clear to me going in that they were here not really because they wanted to, but they felt like they had to. And I didn't really fully understand that comment, but they followed up with, I'm just totally anti-AI. And so I don't really think I'm going to gain much value. And the truth is, the real serious truth is that after that presentation, this was just 2 days ago, that teacher came up to me and said, oh my goodness. He said, when I shared on Class Companion, he said that changed his mind. And he was genuinely excited to give it a try. He said he did not think that he would in any way come around, but that presentation on Class Companion turned it for him. So if someone asked me, a big win, a small win as far as this platform is concerned, I'd probably share that one. And now I want to ask you, big win, small win, teacher, student, doesn't matter. Do you have one? Does one come to mind?
Probably the biggest that I use as I talk to other teachers is I am seeing the most growth in my students' writing ability that I've ever seen. So, I think and we probably all struggle this post-COVID. I really felt like my students' writing ability dropped off the map. And I'm going to not just writing ability, but writing stamina also. You want me to write a whole paragraph, with like sentences and periods and stuff. And then now you want me to write 2 paragraphs. And so I found that by the time I got a few months in of pushing them to write more and more and more, that not only were they writing more, they were complaining less about it. They were writing more efficiently. They were writing faster. They were producing good answers. They were organizing their thoughts better. I tell them at the beginning that some of their essays kind of look like hot vomit in a bag. I know what they had for lunch. It had all the parts. It just wasn't appetizing anymore. And so I'm finding that they organize their thoughts better. They start using paragraphs. At the beginning, everything just came out in one big giant chunk. And so I found that I can get them to practice more, and they are producing better results as a result of that. I had kids write by hand at the very beginning of the class, a short essay on something, and they wrote another one at Christmas break, and I had them compare the two to each other so that they could see their own progress that they've achieved in just a short time period for not a English class. I tell them it's actually reading and writing within the context of American history more than it is a history class where you memorize dates and names.
I think this might be a nice moment if you're up for it. And again, I'm putting you on the spot here. I know you didn't plan for this, but if you were to take over the screen, go to your Class Companion dashboard, if you want. If not, I'll do it from this end, and then you can comment on it. I'm going to put you in the teacher role here, but go to Class Companion, and let's do show how Class Companion can be used to check for understanding using the Create with AI feature. Do you want to do it? All right. So take over the screen here.
And I'll use just something I do periodically. Let me share my window.
Okay, let's see. So I have to add you to the stage. There we go.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to make it just slightly bigger here so I can see the assignment button. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new assignment. The textbook, because my class is dual enrollment and AP U.S. history at the same time, I was dictated on what classroom material I had to use. So Purdue uses the American Yap. So one of the things that I did is I used that to help for my check for understanding quite a bit.
This is the open source American Yap, right? The freebie. Everybody can access it.
That is correct. So one of the things I do is I constantly go and I suck it into Classroom Companion to generate check for understandings from the readings.
Nice.
So
Show us how you, yeah, great.
I'm going to show you just real briefly what I do. So I'm going to generate with AI. I'm going to provide a link. Oh, no, that's not going to work. Sorry. I forgot that doesn't work. I save this as a file because
PDF?
Class Companion won't read this and suck it in. So I just quickly save it as a file. So let's do that.
Are you saving it as a PDF?
No, I'm going to save it as a Word document.
Word doc. Okay.
That's typically what I do.
So you're going to, let me make, while you're doing this, you have your students read from the equivalent. I mean, this is a textbook that, you know, everybody thinks College Board approves textbooks. They don't. They just have a list of textbooks that they,
correct.
Right. And American Yap, I believe, is on there, or at least I know they worked hard to get on there, right?
Yes, so, it is on there.
And so you have them read it, and now you're going to check for their understanding of the reading. Is that what we're doing here?
Correct. That's what I'm going to do. So hold on. I'm just going to save this real quick into my desktop and just call it American Yap. This works really well to suck in PDFs and other things like that. I just didn't have it as a PDF right now. I have it on my school computer. So let's close it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, create a set of questions demonstrating the students' understanding.
You type better than I do, Jeff.
Of this chapter. Okay. Let me suck in the file.
And okay, I see. Got it. Can you make that? Well, no, it's good. You're fine. Okay.
So I just went to my desktop, sucked in the file. It now loaded it as the context. So I do this all the time. Like if we're doing right now Wilson's 14 points. And so I sucked in the transcript of Wilson's 14 points and created a set of questions on Wilson's 14 points. Great for primary source analysis.
And to be clear, when you say sucked in, you're either saving it as a file or a PDF. And this is what I want to make sure everybody understands. If you drag that PDF of the 14 points into what we're looking at here, it will read and generate questions from that PDF, right?
Correct. So I brought in from the American Yap. So now it's going to go do its stuff. And just basically said I wanted to create some questions about it. And off it does its work. I had to laugh. Some of my teachers that are not social studies teachers laughed at the, passing the Civil Rights Act because they were like, well, those all say history things. So I thought it was kind of funny. So as it's going. So now what I've given it is it's generated a set of multiple choice questions. I could have said I also want an essay question. Since I really didn't tell it what I wanted, it automatically defaulted to multiple choice questions from that document.
Can you go up to where it says preview as a student just left of the publish button and activate that? And then show us here, if you could make that a tad larger so we can all see it if possible.
Okay, good. So, what event marked the beginning of World War II in Europe? So I'm going to pick something wrong just for the heck of it. Ditto's over here at the right, so I can ask it a question like, where is Poland? And so it tells me, oh, well, that's where Poland is. You can't ask it the question because it tells you can't do that. But I'm going to go put the correct answer. It'll analyze it and gives you immediate feedback. You can turn off the immediate feedback if you want. Again, what I like about this is learning's going on while they're actually taking the test.
Meaning when they get the feedback, you believe that that's leading to learning. It's not just correcting, but it's the feedback is where the learning is happening. Is that true?
Correct. Yeah. So let's let this one finish. So great job. It's correct. I'm going to pick something wrong. Which battle is considered the turning point of the Pacific War? Oh, let's see, the Battle of Guadalcanal.
Mhm.
You can decide whether or not feedback is given.
Couple of questions I'm wondering is if the feedback is of the form that a student doesn't understand, can they pop it into Ditto and have it explain it in simpler terms? Also, can it explain that feedback in a language of the student's choosing, Spanish, German?
Yes, it can do the language students choosing.
Mhm.
I have not attempted to paste it into Ditto. I'm assuming I can copy paste it and put it in there. Well, as soon as this one comes up, we'll do it. Tells me what the Battle of Guadalcanal is. You know, it was significant, but it's typically not considered the turning point. So what I like, and then the student can dispute it if they think it was wrong. Sometimes this may seem mean. Sometimes I will do questions on purpose that are wrong to have kids dispute it. And you can go down and go through and do that.
So you've shown us how it can be used here for checking for understanding. Jeff, do you
Yeah.
show any Heimler videos or any TED Ed lesson videos? Do you show any of those?
I typically do not. If I use videos, I tend to. I like horrible histories, but that's another story. I like the British humor of it. But my kids spend a lot of time watching the simplified history videos. Those are ones they really enjoy. And sometimes I'll glob onto that and I'll give them some things that are good. There's also with the American Yap, there is a professor from Yale that does a presentation on every single chapter that is actually very well done. And so sometimes I will do those and do check for understandings off of the transcriptions for those. Because you can actually download the transcriptions from YouTube and then suck them in to Class Companion.
That's what I was hoping you would say. That's it. And what a great tool for checking for understanding, huh? Yeah.
So even if they watch a video.
Yeah. Wow. We did Ditto. Stay here on this page. So we did Ditto. We showcase that, how it can be previewed, student preview. The teacher gets to see it, to even test it out. We've talked about the dispute feature. I said there at the beginning, there are about 20. A lot of work has gone into creating those 20. Is there any additional feature that comes to mind that you like?
So let me pop open this question as an example. One of the things that my students, I found the sweet spot is 3 attempts. So the ability, they like the ability to reattempt, especially right then. So that is something I haven't done more than that. I found that if I did more than that, you had the few kids that wanted that 1 point that they might try it 11 times just to get that 1 point. But 3 appeared to be the sweet spot when I looked at what score did they get the first time, what score did they get the second time, what score did they get the third time, and at that point, anything beyond that, you didn't see much benefit. So that is one of the things that I use quite a bit. The other one is I most of the time give them instant feedback, but there are every once in a while I will do delayed, but I found that a lot of kids didn't go back and look. So most of the things I've been using now is instant feedback, but every once in a while I'll do delayed feedback. So those are 2 ones that I play with quite a bit. But definitely the settings, the number of times you allow them. 3 is basically the sweet spot, at least for my students.
We still have a little bit of time, 15 minutes, our webinar. Do you want to showcase how the SAQ might be done, how, especially from the content library, or however you want to do it?
Yeah, I'll just show one from the content library. So I opened it up on another page here. So here are the AP Success ones that are in the public library. So they're a combination of multiple choice, they're a combination of essay. So I've been using these and assigning these to my students in addition to the ones in AP Classroom. I will tell you they like these better because they like the feedback they get as opposed to they just get a final score. Because I had some students say they actually learned stuff from taking a practice exam as opposed to what they don't know from taking a practice exam, which I thought was pretty good. So I'm just going to pop one up. just so you can see it, and we'll look at it. This one is analyze the abolitionist movement impacted politics in the period from 1820 to 1860. So it's just a straight essay, real simple one. What I can do is bring it, I'm going to go bring it in and add it to my class that I was just looking at. Put it in my test class. Now if I go back to my test class here, refresh my screen. There's the new question I just brought in. I can modify it. I can change things about it. There's things I don't like. I mean, it's just a pretty simple question. Previewed as a student, this one doesn't give them any documents that go with it. But this is just a starting point of what I can do.
All this and free, right? This is all free.
So the current version I'm on right now is the free version. So there's nothing in here that you can't do for signing up for free.
Very nice. Very nice. Jeff, is there anything you want to add to our little discussion today?
Probably the thing that I have found, not just for my students, but I found that I teach differently because of the feedback I've been getting from this, if that makes sense. I have a better understanding and a better grasp of where my students are struggling and where they're not. As opposed to, because I have more data points than I did when I was manually giving it. And to be honest, I have more time to focus on other things and sit down with students and discuss their written assignments, as opposed to trying to grade these weekly and, give them feedback that I knew they weren't looking at. So just for my own aspect, I found that I teach differently because of it, because I find things that I struggled with maybe presenting to them, and they were all struggling as a result of that. And I can go and address that. I didn't get into Insight at all. That's one of the paid pieces, but Insight helps roll up in my class or as a teacher where a student is individually struggling, where a class is struggling, or where I'm struggling in more the global thing. And it kind of consolidates all my rubrics together, which is invaluable. But I wanted to stick with the free version, what I was showing.
You've got a chance here. I mean, do you want to recommend? Have you given thought to if Class Companion were to add a brand new feature, what it should be? Do you have a thought on that?
The only feature that I wish I had sometimes is I like to use video clips sometimes in my questions, and being able to embed a video clip or a song, or any multimedia would be something that would be of benefit.
Well, let's think about that. So a stimulus-based question that's interesting, where there's a song. Give me an idea, an example.
When we get to Vietnam War, we're doing questions about, that we have songs from the Vietnam War as an example. And I want them to analyze those songs. So to be able to hear it and be able to see the lyrics are important.
For the webinar attendees here today, we have now Avery Pan, the CEO of Class Companion, has joined us. Avery, I'm assuming you want to respond to Jeff's request of that new feature?
Yes, really briefly, that you can actually attach a video. So if you
I haven't tried. I tried a long time ago.
Yeah. So, but we hear you. And I think that there's more we can do with videos, but you can actually add a video link there.
Oh, nice. I've not done that.
Otherwise, I'm in the chat, so we've got a lot of great engagement. So I'll go backstage.
Okay. Avery, okay, all right. I was going to ask her if, as long as we have you. Yeah, as long as we have you here, is there anything on the near horizon you want to tell us about, feature-wise, or anything about it? And then I'm going to ask you another question. Yeah.
Well, we will definitely provide more info through our product updates. We are working on math and STEM enhancements. So Jeff, I hear you that your colleague in the math department wanted it to be more flexible for what they're teaching. So that's something to look forward to. But otherwise we're crowdsourcing a lot of these requests from teachers like you guys and also in the chat.
Nice. That's where I was going to go. So we got both of them done. Nicely done. Great. Okay. Well, I'm looking at 3:22 and our hour. Let me try that again. Our hour is up in 8 minutes. I don't know if I have any other questions for you, Jeff. And so unless you want to say anything, maybe we'll close it out right here. I was all real good. I liked what you did there with the live demo. Thank you.
Nope, I'm good.
Good.
Unless there are any questions that they have in the threads.
Yeah, Avery, did you want us to? Did you want to come back with any of those questions, or? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, most of the questions we addressed. One question earlier was, Jeff, how do you kind of point your essays? This is when you were talking about you allow disputing when it's kind of like at the 10-point mark, but kind of how do you tend to point your essays? That was a question from the audience.
So most of the practice ones I do is like 10 points. And then when I'm doing one that I'm using I'll do some larger ones. Like I did a large essay in it and I made it worth 50 points. And so those are the ones that I let everybody dispute. It's the 10-point ones, especially if the student has an A. Those are the ones that I don't let them sit and spend a lot of time with me. Because I found that they're beating everything up for 1 point. Even if I physically give them the point, I go, okay, you got 10 out of 10. They still are annoyed that Class Companion gave them a 9 out of 10 and it's screaming at them. But that's not you guys. That's just the nature of some of these students and the way they're wound.
Actually, that reminded me, I do have a question for you still. Jeff, as we get to into AP review prep season, AP review season, spring break usually after, are you going to release a number of these assignments to the kids to do at home, or are you always insisting that they are signed and done in the classroom?
They always do it at home. I do not have enough time to cover it in class. So how I do my class is I give it to them on Monday and it's all due next Monday. So they get a whole week to work on whatever I give them and they can work on it in whatever's the best time for them.
And the other question I wanted to ask was, given that the ability of the AI, we got a lot of, you there?
Yeah, I'm just moving my I had to plug in.
Okay. It's got a lot of given the ability of the AI to create multiple choice, to create questions, do you see any value for review, creating a whole host of MCQs that are not stimulus based? Do you think there's any value for an APUSH student to be able to respond to those?
Probably. I just haven't done it.
Okay.
I had to think through that. Yeah, I think it would be of benefit. I mean, the more they practice and the more they practice with the materials, the faster and the quicker they're going to be able to respond.
Yeah. Any other questions coming through that we?
No questions. I do want to highlight two of the chats. One is from Arletta. She says, I love using Class Companion. Last year, my AP test pass rate, I think averaged more than doubled after using this in class. It was 20 points above my state's average. So giving Arletta a shout out there. And I think another bit here, focusing really on student engagement. Todd said, the first time I used Class Companion, I just jumped right in. I had 100% engagement for general world history. So just wanted to call out a couple of those experiences from the audience. But otherwise, I'll turn it back over to you, Jeff and Peter.
Yeah, I was going to add to that. Because I use it for my regular world history class. I have students that won't write on a sheet of paper, but they'll use Class Companion. So just from that perspective, I viewed it as a win. They actually put thought in words and put them out. But they will never turn in an assignment. The only points they have is Class Companion.
Maybe what we should also do is mention here in sort of closeout for teachers who are of the mindset that to protect their students from accessing information or to prevent their students from accessing information online, they're going to have their students write their responses to the various FRQs. Class Companion can read those. Those can be uploaded. Now, I haven't done that, but do you have any experience with that? That's what I wanted to ask you.
I played with it once, and that's it. I
Okay,
never had
yeah.
students do it.
Yeah, I haven't either. So, okay. Well,
I have some kids that I can barely read their writing. I can't imagine class companion reading it, but hey, it might do
I
just
can't
fine.
read
But
my own writing.
yeah,
I can't read my own writing. I don't know what happened. Somewhere along the line, I must have been out of school that year. I don't know. Well, so Jeff, I can't thank you enough for coming on like this today and doing what you did. I really appreciate it. It was very nice of you. And Avery, do you have anything to say in closeout? If not, yeah.
I'm good. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure hearing about your expertise. And Peter, thank you so much for guiding the conversation.
You're welcome. My best to everybody as we go down this backstretch. Jeff and I both know full well what that is like. A lot of pressure, a lot of stress, and still a lot of work to do. So I wish you all a great closeout to the school year. And of course, wish you the best ever scores ever, so to speak. Other than that, we'll say goodbye and see y'all. Take care.